welcome to Leeds United, latest here on the West Yorkshire Football Show channel. I'm Stephen Brown. Joining me to discuss all things Leeds United is of course, Mr. Jason Booker. Jason, how we doing, mate?
Very well, mate, very well.
Good stuff, good stuff. If you're watching along live, please do smash a like on the video, get your comments in, and get subscribed to the channel as well. We always wonder, don't you, sometimes, because we've started our new Tuesday Leeds United latest show. So every Tuesday, me and Jay are going to catch up on everything that's been happening over the weekend. And then we've got our usual Friday morning show as well. And you do think, God, is there going to be enough stuff to talk about in just a few days? And yeah, it's Leeds United. Daft to even question why. Obviously, the big news is the arrival of James Trafford to Leeds United. It feels like it's inching ever closer. I think, have we had the "Here we go" from Fabrizio? I know he had to make a couple of different versions of that before he got the right details on it. But yeah, we've had the "Here we go." He's away on holiday at the moment, so it's probably delaying things like medicals and the videos and the contracts being signed and whatnot. But it sounds as if it's happening. So we're going to get into all that, lots to discuss about that, plus all the other transfer stuff as well. But I do want to have a catch up first with Jay about our first pre-season game that happened at the weekend. Wrexham beating Leeds 3-2 in the first pre-season game on very late at night. I woke up Sunday morning and watched it kind of on playback. But yeah, good to see the boys in action. Can I just say the kit is outstanding? How good does that kit look, by the way? It's unbelievable, that yellow kit. But Jay, what did you make of the first outing for the boys?
I thought about turning it off after 40 seconds. When we found us
unreal, that, wasn't it? Yeah.
12:30 at night and we're 1-0 down at Wrexham after 40 seconds, we're kind of like, probably just go to bed. But I did sit through it all and I watched it. I mean, the teams, obviously, especially the first half team was massively changed, and we got outings for Mills and Linau. I think was there another youngster in
Cresswell. Cresswell was
within the back line as well, and then in the second half, Pickles and Chambers came on. So we got to see a little bit of the youth quality that we've got. I was pretty impressed with Linau, if I'm honest. I thought he held himself pretty well on that left hand side, as did Mills in the midfield, or in that kind of number 10ish role. But yeah, it was a massively changed team. There was bits to like, bits not to like, but I don't get too hung up on pre-season performances. We've seen this under Farke, and we saw it especially under Marcelo, that it really doesn't mean all that much when the real games start. It's an opportunity for legs, it's an opportunity for fitness, it's a bit of time for gelling and bonding and all the rest of it that comes with it. But Wrexham had that was their third game in pre-season already, and their season starts earlier than ours. So I didn't read too much into the result, especially. I thought it was okay, and there were some good bits. We played 5 at the back in the first half, then we went to 4 in the back in the second half, which kind of leaves us with the same expectation that we had, that we could see both formations. How deep do you want to go with it, mate?
Well, I was going to say, just check your mic. Are you coming through your computer or your mic? You sound a bit distant, and we can hear a bit of a hum in the background.
Okay,
if you switched up, but yeah, well, Jay,
you just talk a second.
He's on some nodules and tries to get his mic sorted out there. Yeah, I watched it and I was like, Jay, I was about ready to switch it off after a minute. It was interesting. Obviously, we had a lot of the ball. I mean, God, so much possession, not too many chances. I'm interested to kind of get Jay's take on the fact of how important it is to impress in pre-season performances. Certainly, if you're a fringe player. So I look at someone like Sean Longstaff, who I think there's probably a part of the fan base that would actually be happy us if we actually sold Sean Longstaff. But yeah, I don't know if you heard any of that, Jay. But basically, just saying, in terms of if you're a fringe player, I feel like surely every minute counts in pre-season friendlies in a sense of putting yourself to the front of the manager's mind of what you can do, what you can offer. It almost feels like if you're kind of the established ones of the team, maybe if you're like Ampadu and Stark and Road and you're a stalwart, you're always going to start, not a problem. But I looked at someone like Longstaff and it felt like to me almost had that little bit between his teeth. You know, he seemed kind of determined to make an impression. I thought he had a really positive game actually. And you know, you look at it and go, look, this is very early in the preparation and everything, but there's a little bit of pressure for squad players to actually be decent. And you know, you look at Peru, you know, he misses a penalty and, you know, little things like that can just kind of, I mean, beautiful finish for the goal, by the way, but, you know, little things like that can stick in people's minds. But is there a little bit more pressure on those squad players? We've got to make an impact. Same with the young players as well. You know, if you go in, you've almost you're only going to have limited opportunities to impress the manager.
Yeah, is that better, by the way?
I'm still can sound. See, it's not bad though. You sound clear enough, to be honest. You sound clear enough.
It's a normal mic, so I don't know what's going on there.
No,
But
you're fine. You're clear enough. Yeah, you're clear enough.
I think you're spot on. I think it's a little bit of a trial phase for a couple of them players. I thought Sean Longstaff was excellent, and we've seen in a couple of moments last season that he can certainly be of huge value. But then we've also seen moments where there's others ahead of him in the pecking order, if you like. But he can be an attacking threat from that midfield area, which some of the others don't really have that in the locker. You know, we know that Tanaka's maybe got a long distance striker, as has Anton Stack, but Longstaff's got that capability of being able to get in and around the box in the right areas as well. So he'd be certainly a useful asset. And with the Shea Charles kind of rumours circling still and other names kind of being put out there for that position, somebody's got to drop out, and you can't imagine it's Ampadu, you can't imagine it's Anton Stark. So there then comes only one other place really for a starter. And that's certainly at the minute being fought for between, you know, all the others, Brendan Aronson, Ao Tanaka and Sean Longstaff, and we're not even then mentioning Ilya Gruev. So it kind of does leave it really open for somebody to stake a claim, and Longstaff really needs to do that. He's probably not got another big move in him. You'd have to believe that the next move would be to an Ipswich or a Coventry or a Burnley, or, you know, someone that's going to be potentially in and around that battle for Premier League and survival. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting position. He certainly didn't do himself any harm with the performance that he had the other day. I thought it was excellent. And then you mentioned the kids. I especially think Linau is in that position, because it doesn't look like we're going to make a move for any left back or left wing back cover, and it makes sense not to, because Gabby's such an out and out starter. He's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. Then you have James Justin, who can cover both places, because you could argue the same for Jayden Bogle as well on the right hand side. So then we're left in this situation. If James Justin is needed out and out at right back, that left back slot becomes open. So if you're good enough as a youngster to fill that void on a temporary basis as a backup option, you're going to make that position your own. So it's a real big opportunity for him to kind of stake a claim for that. So yeah, I agree completely with what you're saying. And some of the others, you know, Joe Perreault has obviously made his opinions and his demands, wants, desires clear that he wants to stay at Leeds United. The reality is he's going to have to play himself into such a strong position to do that. The likelihood is that he will be at the minute playing for the best possible move on offer. I don't think he's causing any problems, which is testament to him. The manager still thinks enough of him to give him opportunities, but the likelihood is that he's going to be just playing himself into the best possible move available for him. And you can't say fairer than that, because at the end of the day, he's still contracted to Leeds United for another year. So we'll see what happens, I think, in that department.
Yeah, definitely. I think Linau was the one that I was kind of watching from the youngsters, you know, because of that left back situation, and he was one who was talked about, got his Wales debut and everything like that. So there's a little bit of hope there, and look, there's a bit of pressure to lower that age of the squad and to start producing some youth products. I saw your TikTok. Give Jay a follow on TikTok, Straight Talking Leeds fan as well. I thought you made a really good point about DCL, and when we don't have DCL as like a focal point up top now, we saw that last year. I thought Mecha, I really, really liked Mecha, and he showed some actual really nice touches and things, but it does feel like a different side when DCL's not in there, and it's look, it's only a pre-season, can't read too much into it, but yeah, bit of a reminder of just how important he is.
Yeah, I thought. Well, I mean, we've seen a period of it last season, and Mecha could do the role to a point, but most of the time we look unrecognisable without Calvert-Lewin up there.
Yeah.
And I thought in both halves, I thought this is quite surprising, but I thought if anything we looked worse in the second half, and we got more of the first team on, and we had Mecha up front as opposed to Pirro. I actually thought we looked worse. And I think that's because we actually tried to play more direct in the second half as opposed to the first half, and it then exposed the fact that we didn't have that focal point up there. So yeah, it's a problem, and I know that we've been linked with Demirovic this week as also the Spanish striker from Levante.
Yeah,
SP.
yeah, Carlos Espy.
Yeah, SP especially. I mean, Demirovic can kind of do that role as well, but SP is 6'4", quite a big, bulky looking target man who will do a similar role to Calvert-Lewin. I don't know if it's just agents and media putting all that together, but there seems to be kind of the rumours and links that we're hearing in the media tend to be pretty tangible all summer so far, even some of them becoming reality pretty quickly. So I believe that is definitely the case. We've got a bit of a funky situation with the strikers at Leeds. Obviously, we've got Calvert-Lewin is such the main man. Then we've got Mecha with a year left. We've got Pirro with a year left. Both who are never going to stake the claim to actually be the out-and-out number 9 at Leeds United, I don't think. You've then got a situation with Mateo Joseph, who's going to be out with an ACL issue probably for another 3 or 4 months, so we can't look to sell him. So what do we do with this conundrum that we've got in a striker situation? Other clubs will be Mecha and Pirro will both be attractive propositions for other teams, but with only a year left on both of their deals, they might just think, you know what, we'll wait a year. We'll wait until January and get them on a bargain, and bring them in January. So it puts Leeds United in a funny position, I think. So I'm not surprised by striker rumours.
We seem to have a few of these situations where it's almost like you've got these players where there's not a European market for them because they ain't got the money that perhaps we want. They're not quite good enough to be starters in the Premier League, but then probably Championship teams are umming and ahhing. If they want to make the move, the player's probably not interested in dropping down. We seem to have kind of a whole host of these players, but we are starting to see some outgoings, and we will get into that. Some brilliant comments coming in. Thank you so much for them. We're going to get to them, I promise you, because we're going to kind of move on now. We're going to talk about, obviously, the main topic. James Trafford, as John says here, James Trafford, England, number 1. Gav, evening all, I make our net spend so far to be 48 million. I'd love it if it was just pound, but yeah, million. Wealth, a few more players on the cards. Yep, MOT build up for the new season. Absolutely. Michael, guys, with all these big fees being paid out for new signings, does this put pressure on Farke to have a better season than last to keep his Leeds job, or have a similar season to be expected? Really great point. I do want to touch on that as well. Drive some really good talking points. Nigel, what a signing Trafford is for us reminds me of when we signed England's number 1, Nigel Martin. Trafford will be England's number 1 for the Euros 2028, in my opinion. Skip, crazy that some fans complaining about the rumour price for Trafford. If we want quality, we have to pay the asking price. It's potentially one of our best ever signings, and loads of great comments, and we're going to keep pulling them up, don't worry. Yeah, James Trafford, £40 million fee, add-ons and other little bits and pieces. I've got to be perfectly honest, it's a signing I never thought we would do. If you'd have said to me, even a month ago, James Trafford, 40 million, Leeds United doing it, I would have said no chance. Just could not see us doing a price tag that high. Really didn't think that was going to happen. Obviously, with Darlow's exit, that's kind of ramped up the need to really nail down that position. There is some kind of not hesitancy. It's exciting. Obviously, I think it's probably got to be the most high-profile signing we've had for a hell of a long time. I can't remember anything where it's going to capture the headlines quite like this one. Not just the fee, but the player profile, the fact that he's, from Man City, he played in 2 cup competitions last year, won 2. He's in the England squad. I mean, I'm struggling to. I mean, even when we signed Rodrigo and Rafinha, they didn't have the profile that James Trafford does, certainly nationally in this country. It feels pretty seismic, I've got to say, and it is very, very exciting. But there is also things to kind of consider, in regards to it. The money, the fact of so much of your budget is taken up with this. Now, we don't know what the situation is in terms of Leeds United's overall budget. We're all guessing, and a lot of people say, look, it's not our job to worry about that. But the other side of that is being realistic, Jay. We live in SCR world and PSR world where it feels for clubs below that top 6, there's a price to pay for everything. Yes, you can go out and spend, but there's going to be something that's going to hit you you might lose a player you don't want to lose. So I'm not saying it means we're going to sell Ampadu by the end of the transfer window, but you just wonder what is coming down the pipeline. How are they doing this financially? How is that all going to work out? So a lot to consider with this, but kind of first and foremost, how excited are you to be getting a keeper of that standing and reputation in goal at Leeds?
Yeah, lots to unpick there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. You're right though. Like everything that you've said is pretty much spot on. I think we're entering a different time, aren't we? For Leeds United, I agree with you completely on the size of the transfer. I think the only one comparable in this reincarnation of Leeds in terms of since we've come back to the Premier League is Rodrigo, because he was Spain's not number 9, but he was Spanish international. He came with a pedigree. People knew him at a certain level. I'd say then after that you have to go back to signing Robbie Fowler for a signing of this kind of magnitude. He's our record transfer. He made a big move to Manchester City. He's an England international. He's 23, the potential, all the rest of it. I'm not going to be revisionist on it. No. A week ago, I said what I said with regards to it, and I faced a fair bit of stick on my own channel with regards to it, because I will always just say it as I see it, and I think it's a great signing. I'm excited by it, but there is definitely reservations that we should all have with regards to it. Not just the transfer fee, because I think that is a massive part of the reservations. If we were making this signing for 15-20 million, I'd be saying what a snip. It's worth all the risks that are then attached to it. So the transfer fee is a huge part of it. The sell-on clause, the potential buyback. We need to know what all of that looks like. But if we're signing him for 40 plus bonuses and we've got a buyback of 60 million for Manchester City, that's not a great world for us to be in. Not really. Not when you take, because the risk attached to it should be worth the potential of 80, 90, 100 million for James Trafford. So that's where that offset comes for me. On the face of the talent, I've gone back and looked at what I said in comparison to then what's actually happened. I still think some of what I said was fair. It was dropped in the first Premier League season at Burnley for Muric, who then went on and played for Ipswich the season after that. There's a reason for that. He had to have a season back in the Championship where no Premier League team took the chance, and he was brilliant in that Championship season, but that was still the reality. Manchester City then took a chance on him and paid 30 million, and he was then dropped after 4 Premier League games because for whatever reason they decided that he'd made I remember him making a few claims. I know Donnarumma became available. I know that, and I understand how good he is. But Manchester City wouldn't have made that move if they'd have been convinced that Trafford was the man. Now, I recognise the fact that this is Manchester City. I get it. I understand it. But there was still something that happened there that's then left it open for a Leeds United this season to come in and take him. I think it will work out as potentially a great signing. But when you contextualise everything, I still think there's some reservations there. All that said, I'm still going to get super excited about it. It's still a signing that we needed to make because the manager didn't have the assurances that he wanted with regards to Lucas Perry. And I get that. And I think it's the right thing to do if he's not going to back the signing that we made 12 months ago. I do believe if Carl Darlow had signed a new contract, I don't think this signing would be happening. I think the money would be going somewhere else. So that's pretty much where I'm at with it all. I think it's one that we should get excited in. When I've been planning about tonight's stream, we're doing a lot of digging into transfer fees of goalkeepers, and the Nigel Martin conversation came up. We signed him for 2.25 million in 1996. That equates in football terms now to about 35 million pound. When you actually start processing that, it's mental, but it actually doesn't then look as mental. It doesn't look as seismic. So
that was a British record fee, wasn't it?
It was a British record fee for a goalkeeper at the time. This is going to be a British record goalkeeper, I believe, as well. And I think it puts him number 6 in all-time goalkeepers for transfer fee. So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still then kind of undecided on everything that I've just said, but hopefully I've kind of painted a picture for where I'm exactly at. It's a super exciting signing, and he will 100% win us points next season.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I'm on the same page with you, because you've got to be honest about how you feel about it. Internally, like when you think 40 million on a goalkeeper and his record is kind of, is what it is, obviously undoubtedly talented, and I know a lot of people saying, look, he played all the games in the cup competition. Well, hello, Perry did. You trust it's like Arsenal with Kepa. You're going to give him a cup competition, aren't you? That's what you do with the keeper that you think less of. That's just what you do. You give him the cup competitions, the domestic cup competitions. We did that. That said, I mean, his save percentages and everything were fantastic last year. If you look at the stats, superb. And it's an exciting side. It's a huge fee, and I hope it is. It feels like it's one of those transfers. It's a little bit of a game changer in terms of what we're doing. What the expectations are, how they've sold this project. I do want to get to some of your comments here. Ryan, thanks for your comment, mate. This transfer window has put Radrizzani and Ortas to shame. We were gaslit into thinking the business couldn't be done without a dodgy loan release clause, or we just couldn't get the players in.
Just to balance that, because I think Ryan's got a fair point, but I also think the world in which Radrizzani and Orta worked in and the ones that the 49ers worked in are just chalk and cheese. Radrizzani was always very honest with the fact that he didn't have the facilities to take Leeds on to the next level. The 49ers have always said that the idea with Leeds is to take us back to Europe and take us to that top table. They're a completely different outfit. Radrizzani and Orta, with the fees and the loan clauses and all these kind of things that they had to put into the contract, they could have done a better job. I'm not saying that they couldn't. Of course, they could have done a better job in terms of how they negotiated that. But to be able to get some of them players to sign, that is what they will have had to have done. The assurances that they would have made, the bonuses that they would have paid, the contracts, the wages, they wouldn't have been able to facilitate the same as what the 49ers can. So you have to be fair with this and play a bit of devil's advocate. Radrizzani and Orta got loads wrong, but they also got loads right as well, especially in the run-up to that last season. Rafinha, Rodrigo, Diego Llorente when he first came in, Robin Koch. There were players within that period of time that they did do right, along with the ones that came in the Championship as well. Jack Harrison, I know we'll mention him briefly. Helder Costa. You could go on and Pablo Hernandez came in under Rads and Orta as well. So and no more so than Marcelo Bielsa. Yeah, so I think we always have to be fair with that.
Do you think, I mean, the kind of fascinating thing this brings up is comparisons between that second Premier League season, what we did under Rads and Orta, Dan James Firpo, compared to what we seem to have done this season. It feels to me very much, Jay, that the Premier League landscape now it's like, go hard or go home. It's like, you get promoted, you better be willing to go above and beyond, and you've got to put the fees down. Look at Nottingham Forest, how they've acted in the transfer market, and there's still no guarantee that it can go right, but it almost feels like you have to be willing to push it right to the edge in order to get anywhere. If you just come up and tread water as a promoted team, you're going straight back down. Sunderland recruited fantastically last summer. Really good recruitment strategy. Leeds, really good recruitment strategy, really clever. Spent the money, brought in the quality and found a way to survive, and hopefully year 2 we can build on this. Yeah, sorry mate, your comment on that.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're spot on. I think we're behaving like a proper Premier League outfit. We're behaving like a club of which have got the stature and size that we have, and we can command a certain amount of respect at the Premier League level. We're behaving like that. The great news is we also have the backing and the substance with the funding that the 49ers bring. And hence then we want to fall within the line with the rules, which is the need for a bigger stadium, because the stadium expansion will allow us to do that even better, so the recruitment really has been absolutely spot on. We've said this before under the 49ers, they've been absolutely spot on, two within 1 or 2, and recruitment's the most difficult job within the whole of football. Most of the time I reckon most clubs have got probably around a 50% hit rate, one good one to one bad one, and ours is way in excess of that. And I've just seen Michael's comment, and I don't know if you wanted to flash it up, but it's an interesting one when you talk about 49ers signings as opposed to Farke signings, because I don't know where that really, I don't know how people would even know that. I know we were linked with so many different names last season with regards to the goalkeeper position. The truth is, the before any signings are agreed, all of them will have their say with regards to should we make this one, should we make a move on this particular signing, X player. And then when they come, and Farke will have a part of that. I don't believe for a second that Farke will be like, do not sign that player, and the 49ers will go and do it anyway. No. I don't believe that exists at all. I think there'll be some that are more appealing than others on the list, and Farke eventually might go on then, yeah. And I think that's probably where Perry was. But Perry started our last season as number 1, and Farke lost trust in him, and you have to say that the manager was right, because Caldalo ended up having a great end to the season, just like he did the previous season with Melier, and sometimes that just happens. For all we know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was a 49ers signing. Like, you know what I mean? And just because it's worked out, it's like, oh, well, it were a Farke one. It don't work like that. No. So I would just be like, I would hold caution with that and just see it on the face of it of what it is. The player proves his importance to the team, and then the manager plays him or not.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking as you were talking as well, when you start to add up how much the 49ers have invested in Leeds since they took full control. I mean, it's scary amounts, really. I mean, just from a recruitment side, facilities, background staff, the stadium stuff. I mean, it's absolutely staggering, really. I want to pull up Glenn's comment. Thanks for your comment, mate. Part of me is scared this transfer window is going too well. Fans will expect us to qualify for the Champions League. I mean, the thing is, what happens to the expectations now, Jay? Because for me, I don't really know where I stand with my expectations now. I mean, it feels almost like a re-evaluation, and we're not done. If you get Brandon and if you get a couple of others in of that kind of calibre, what does that do to those expectations? If you'd have said to me the day we finished last season, if you said, right, you can have another 14th place finish next season, 100% bite your hand off. I'll take it all day long, because it's just about consolidating. But it feels like, Murahimovic signing 30-odd million for a really highly rated 23-year-old defender. Harry Wilson comes in on a free. James Trafford, won 2 competitions last season, was in the England squad. You're going after Julian Brandt, who's played in the Champions League year in, year out for a decade. What are the expectations here? I mean, are we going into a new level of what we should hope for, what we should expect? The thing is, I hate saying, I would hate to get to it where I'm like, I expect us to get Europe, or I expect us to get a top 10 finish, because I don't think it works like that. I don't think that would be fair, particularly. But, I mean, no doubt, amongst a lot of fans, their expectations are going to start to really rise, and it could have that effect of more pressure on Farke.
Well, it was same as the comment that you brought up earlier on, and I mean, it's already happening if you look at Kevin's comment there. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm always going to be the balance to this, because that's how my brain works, I think. And I think you've got to be really, really, really careful, because we are sitting in a Leeds United bubble, one of which doesn't contemplate everything else that's also going on in the Premier League. Because while we're moving, everyone else is moving as well. There's transfers going on all over. There's new managers. There's all sorts happening within the Premier League, and I also will always remind us that we overachieved last season.
Yeah.
I still think that team was a bottom four side. Yeah. And the manager and the players together, the atmosphere, the man management. I mean, again, seeing all the videos that are coming out so far, I love the camaraderie within the team. I love the makeup. I absolutely love this team. It's as close to an enjoyable team as I can ever remember. The only one that comes close is the Bielsa side, and we all know what we thought of that one, especially the championship winning team with Ben White and whatnot. So, I think this team overachieved so much that we've got to be really careful with expectations. I also think we've got to be careful that we don't want too much too fast. This I'm hearing, and I don't know how true this is, but the new rules are kind of factoring it being a negative to get Europe too soon, because you can do less with your wages, which is why Villa and Newcastle are struggling so much.
Well, Jay had that guy on his channel, didn't he? I don't know if you saw that one. That's basically what he said. Is like, you don't want to qualify for Europe for like 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah. So why would we really want to add that to part of the expectation? All that it is ego. The fan being able to say, yeah, Leeds United have got back in Europe, and that's all it is really that's driving that desire at the minute. So for me, I think that this team finishes between, and I'm including Brand and maybe one other to this, I'd be over the moon with a comfortable 10th to 12th. I really would. I think a high overachievement with this team at the minute, as it's looking like it's going to be, would be to finish top half.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to or should look at it as we're signing these players and it'd be a failure to finish mid-table. Finishing mid-table in the Premier League is an unbelievable achievement as it currently stands. The dynamics within the pyramid of English football has shifted so much. And a decent cup run, that'd be nice. And we then look to be able to establish even more in 12 months' time, and we go again. And then we can really think, right, 2 years, we've got the Leeds United back in the stadiums, another year behind us, we've got, X, Y, and Z now to be able to build on. Can we now look at the top 8?
Yeah, and like the way it's going, I'm thinking 8th to 10th spot. No, I agree. I think my mind with this is we've got to build into this Premier League experience. We've got to kind of build up. Because we've seen it before. I mean, first season last time we finished 9th, and I think we all thought we've cracked it. This is easy, and then you're relegated within 2 seasons. It only takes one bad season, by the way. Wolves, for it all to go wrong.
Well, West Ham won the European Cup. I won a European Cup only 2-3 seasons ago, and they're back in the Championship. After 11, 12 years outside of the second division. So you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to make sure that you keep on maintaining that trajectory in the right way. But the signings are definitely going about that in the right way. We're combining potential with effective ready-made talent. Tariq, as an example, it doesn't even look like that, but that high of a transfer fee now, does it really? At 34 million in comparison to some of what's going on in the Premier League. Average. We were talking in the group the other day about Bacola at 145 million. Same kind of. And I know he's an attacker, but he's not shown anywhere near really the level to command a £145 million transfer fee. You're paying for potential really. So it's going to be super fascinating, but I really like the way that the club are going about it so far.
Yeah, no, indeed. I do want to bring up Michael's comment here as well. 40 million is a bit excessive for a goalkeeper. Brentford paid 12.5 for Kelleher with add-ons, and Sunderland paid 9.5 for Roofs with add-ons last summer, who Leeds were linked to, yet those clubs got them. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the keeper position for Leeds United has just been a headache for the longest time. We've talked about it before. You look at Rob Green was good. Before that, you look at like Martin and Robinson. Casper Ankergan was all right in bits and pieces.
In League One.
But it's like it's a position that we've always kind of really struggled with, and it feels like this might now be, hopefully, that position put to bed. Now, the other thing is, and the thing that I'm questioning a little bit is, why was he so keen on this move to Leeds United? Why, all the rumours have come out that he really wanted to come to Leeds, and I just can't help but think it's got to be something to do with a release clause or a favourable release clause. Now, don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I just wonder, because if he has 2 good seasons at Leeds, he'll want, he potentially will want to go back to a Big Six club or an elite club abroad. Now, where does that leave you then, Jay, in a couple of years if you've got to try and fix that problem again? I mean, me personally, I'm not too fussed. I think the game is player trading now. I think it's ins, it's outs far more frequently than there's ever been. I think you can't get too attached to anyone. We could sell Ampadu next year for 60 to 80 million, for example. That could happen next year. Someone could come in next year and that could happen. Where does that leave you if you're trying to solve that kind of problem again? Or does it not really matter in kind of the way the game is set up these days, with it being, so much transfers going on?
I think there's a certain amount of that that's definitely reality. I think you have to kind of come on board with the way that football is. I Pascal Struijk leaving, it's easier for us to maybe become to terms with that one quite quickly because of our overall thoughts to his ability at times. But the reality is that we've lost somebody that's been a bit of a mainstay of the team just because we need to sort out our PSR rules or whatever, SCR or whatever it's bloody called. I think definitely have to make your peace with that, but I think it also then depends on where Leeds United's projection looks. If Leeds United continue to grow and develop over the next 2 seasons, there could be no reason for James Trafford to leave. If he's winning England caps and he is competing at some level for potential Europe and then cup competitions, Leeds United are going to challenge for the Premier League in the next 5 years? Probably not. But the reality is that only 2 or 3 teams can do that every season anyway. And unless he's going to get a move to Liverpool, Arsenal or Manchester City again, then he's going to have to pick his poison almost to a point. I think then you look at the seasons that he's had over the last couple of years, the situation that he found himself in 12 months ago, he thought he was going to be Manchester City's number 1. And very quickly that changed. The reality is it's a very clear direction for him to be number 1 at Leeds United, given the landscape, Darlow and Perry, what happened to him last season and the reality that he was probably going to be moving on as well. If it had gone to Aston Villa or Newcastle, I think there's probably a worry in James Trafford's mind that he would have spent another season as the number 1. Newcastle have signed a French 20-year-old goalkeeper that has got expected big things for big money. They've still got Nick Pope there as well. We saw what happened to Ramsdale last season. Ramsdale went in at Newcastle and ended up being number 2 to Nick Pope. James Trafford might have been thinking, well, that could have happened to me again. Take it back a year on an M in Martinez. Martinez was expected to go to Manchester United on deadline day and it didn't happen. He ended up staying. Who knows, James Trafford confirms to go to Aston Villa and all of a sudden Emi Martinez decides to stay again and he ends up behind arguably the best goalkeeper in the world in Martinez. So when you start factoring all that in, the transfer to Leeds United for Trafford starts to make more sense. He's also been compensated very well by the sounds of it, 135 grand a week, which is not to be sniffed at. For all we know, he's actually being paid more at Leeds United than he was at Man City. There might be a case that actually is a reality. So I think when you factor it all in, that makes a lot of sense. Will there be a release clause? I imagine that there will be, but I think it'll be more than you're probably thinking. I think with the release clause to any other team that's signed with James Trafford, I think you'd be looking at probably double what we pay. 80 million, I think it'll be in and around that. My concern is the potential buyback clause. Sell-on clauses to Manchester City, I think will be that'll be there without a doubt. I think it'll probably be 5 or 10%. On top of what we've obviously already paying at 40 million. The rumour has it that we've actually negotiated more of an upfront fee to take some of that away. So maybe it's gone from 10 to 5 or 15 to 10, which again is going to be favourable for Leeds should he do well and move on. Like I said, my biggest concern is the buyback clause. If we've agreed to pay 40 million and then sell him back for 60, that'd really worry me. because there might be a case in a year's time where Man City think, sod this, we'll buy him back.
It's like a loan, isn't it?
Yeah.
It starts to look like a loan. I mean, Gav makes the point here, can't ever see Trafford returning to City again. I mean, it would be a bit preposterous, wouldn't it, him going back for a third time? I mean, it would feel a bit daft, really. I can see there's almost 100 here watching. If you could just smash a like on the video, that'd be much appreciated. Getting Trafford in the door will attract others to come in of good caliber. What do you think about that aspect of it? I mean, if you're a player out there, maybe even a Julian Brandt who's kind of been waiting and watching and seeing what the club's been up to, and you see Leeds signing someone of that reputation, that kind of stature. Is that effective? Does that work on other players to go, oh yeah, something's bubbling away there? We might want to get aboard that.
100%. Yeah, I think this is a massive move for a Julian Brandt, and we're talking like it's going to happen on the back of the Trafford signing, which it might not. But it certainly can't harm it, can it? When you're seeing the potential new team that you're going to go to pay 40 million for a up and coming top quality goalkeeper, you're thinking, yeah, this is a project that I would like to be about, and there's some serious potential going on there. I think it's a really exciting move for Julian Brandt. He's going to get well paid again, and he's going to get a 3-year deal by the sound of it, and he'll get an opportunity to play week in, week out in the Premier League. And I think also, I've mentioned this before, I think Leeds United are very similar to Dortmund. I think we're a very similar sized club. I think we've got a very similar fan base. We're very fanatical. We're not one of the, obviously Dortmund are at that tier below Bayern Munich. I think Leeds can have the potential to be in and around there. I think the fan bases are very, very similar. I've actually been to Dortmund's ground a couple of times. It's an unbelievable place to go and watch football. So I think that signing makes a lot of sense, and I think from a Leeds United perspective, being really smart around wages and then attraction to Harry Wilson, who, for me, looks like that bit of X factor that we were missing last season, and Julian Brandt would be unbelievable. And it does balance out the big signings. It just does. Yeah, sure, you're going to pay the wages, but you've got to pay the wages anyway. I.e. James Trafford, you're paying 40 million and 135 grand a week. So if you can do some of them moves without a big transfer fee, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. In terms of balance then, I mean, when I was watching the team at the weekend, and obviously it is just a pre-season friendly, not, kind of looking too deeply into it, but, when you see Pirot, when you see, for me personally, Dan James, when you see Nonto, you've seen these particular players huffing and puffing for year on year, and especially I look at someone like James, I just think he's limited at Premier League football level. I just don't think he will ever have the impact at Premier League level. And you look at that area of the pitch and you're thinking, well, hang on, don't we need to heavily invest in that area of the pitch? Now, we've got Harry Wilson on that side, I get that, and I agree with you. I think when, even just in the pre-season friendly, when you saw Harry Wilson come on, he's just got so many different dimensions to his game. He's got that unpredictability. But, I worry about Okafor. I worry about Okafor's durability. I worry about his injury record, his availability. And I still feel we're massively short in that area. I feel like there's still not enough in attack. I mean, but 40 million now has gone towards goalkeeper. 32 million has gone towards centre-back position. How much is there left to strengthen that attack? I still feel there needs to be more done in attack. But I don't know. I mean, they managed to do the business last year.
This is why you've got to maintain a certain balance with your expectations. We can't replace them all, Browney, overnight. We've got to do this in a certain phase, and for whatever reason, it's kind of panned out like this, that we're having to spend more towards the backline again, because we did spend more towards the backline last season as well. But we are seeing the overall level of this squad be raised massively. I have my reservations about the James Trafford deal, but is he a better goalkeeper than Lucas Perry and Caldalo? Yeah, by an absolute mile. Yeah, we can have reservations about the transfer fee and still say that he's a bloody good footballer and miles better than what we had. I think Tariq will also prove to be way better than Pascal Struijk. I think the bar has been raised there. I think Harry Wilson goes into the same conversation. But you can't, unfortunately, sell them all and replace them all in one window. So if we're in a situation where we're going into this season with Dan James as an option on the right, is it the worst? No, it's not. Like, yeah, sure, we could improve, and yeah, it could be better, but it's not also the worst option. There'll be plenty of Premier League teams that would like to have Dan James as a backup option on that right wing. There is. And he does give us something different in terms of raw pace. He does give us something different in terms of a potential partnership with Harry Wilson. We saw that we win the penalty through Dan James's pace. It gives us something a little bit different if we decide that we want to approach a situation a little bit differently. And I think there's other players that go within that as well. I think Brendan Aronson falls into that conversation. He's still good for another season. I would say I'd get him a new contract and look to sell him in 12 months' time. I think Tanaka could fall into that conversation as well. I even think there's some uncomfortable conversations with other ones that we really, really do like. Joe Rodon, I think, is a conversation. I really like Joe Rodon, but at 28-year-old, and given his limitations at time, I think there's a conversation that we will need to improve on him in 12 months, 2 years, as well. So, or it becomes a backup option. He replaces Sebastian Bornau as the backup option. You could then James Justin. And how long does this conversation keep going for? Because until we are where Man City and Arsenal are, we are going to constantly need to replace and improve on players. So I think we're going about it in the right way, mate. I really do. And I think, they're also showing that they're being a bit ruthless with one or two as well. You can't show that amount of teeth with everybody. People will say, well, why they're not being ruthless with Joe Perreault? Again, balance comes into it. But if Joe Perreault's not right for the first team, he will not play football games this season. I have no doubt about that.
No, indeed. Mickey, thanks for your comment, mate. Trafford should give us 10 points this season. Yeah, let's hope so. Moving on then, a couple of the things. Lucas Perry to Torino looks kind of set to happen as soon as the Trafford deal goes through. Yeah, I mean we've kind of touched on him already. Been a strange old year for him. He must be kind of. You wonder what he must be thinking, really. He came with kind of a good reputation, and a couple of things here and there doesn't go for you, and it feels like goalkeeping position. It's like almost the most brutal one, really. It's mistakes. I mean, people were on his back. I remember from like game 2 about his kicking and things. It always felt like it wasn't quite happening. Now the Torino deal, what we're saying now, do we think it's a loan deal and then maybe an obligation, or I don't know, optional? I hope it's not an option. It's hard to get money though from clubs abroad. It really is. It would have been nice to get a bit of chunk of change for him, but that looks as if that's going to be the end of Lucas Perry at Leeds.
Yeah, I think whatever the deal looks like, Leeds United will only sanction it if it's suitable for Leeds. I think that is very clear. We're not about to be pushed around, but I do think it's important that Lucas Perry, given the fact that we signed him for 15 million, goes out and plays this year. I don't think there's a lot of benefit in keeping him as the number 2. I don't see how that makes sense. I think you can see it on his face in the videos that he's not happy, which again is a problem. I think he's been treated really poorly by the fans and by Farke, if I'm honest. You're right, from pretty much word go, there were the knives out, and I get it. We're sensitive with goalkeepers because of the situation that we found ourselves in over more recent years. I don't think he's ever played that badly, if I'm honest. There's moments, there's certainly goals which we can apply to him and say, look, he should have done that. We spoke about it until we're blue in the face, a depth perception problem. When the ball drops in between him and the back line, he cannot decide whether to come and go, and that was his biggest problem. But I didn't think he really did anything exceptionally poorly. Farke left him out to dry in January when I don't think he was at fault at all for that goal that we conceded away at Newcastle in later on. And he was kind of made an example of. Caldalo came in and was a safe pair of hands, and as the season went on, Darlow actually played better and better and better. He looked even better. I don't think that was in testament to how poor Lucas Perry was, or I just think Caldalo had raised his level. So I think Lucas Perry will arguably go on and have a pretty good season somewhere, and I hope he does, because it'll be good for Leeds United. It's one of them transfers that just don't work out. You see many of them. We're signing a goalkeeper who's got his own story with exactly that in James Trafford. So, yeah.
But what happens if Trafford makes a mistake the first game?
That's it. We've got to be
but I seriously dread to think
I agree.
the snowball effect from that, because it feels like particular goalkeepers. That's how kind of how vulnerable it can be. But hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah, I agree, and we absolutely. I've seen Kev's comment about it still need a number 2. We absolutely do. They cannot, and I mean this nicely. There cannot be a situation where James Trafford gets an injury and we're bringing Alex Cairns in as our first. What if he's out for 5 to 10 games and we've got a League 2 goalkeeper in there, or Rory Mahadi's having to come and step in, who's been playing regional football, at Ossett Town, and it's a problem. We do need a number 2 goalkeeper that's happy to sit on the bench, i.e. a Sam Johnston, or even maybe an up and comer that's happy to fill a space and hope an opportunity comes for him. It's a big issue. It's as big of an issue as sorting out the number 1 spot, because it's like if Kepa leaves at Arsenal and Melly has to go in and play for Raya, right? It's a real issue. It's a real issue. So I love Alex Cairns, and I think he's great for the changing room and stuff. But in that first half, you could really see his limitations as an out-and-out goalkeeper, a legitimate choice.
First minutes he's had since he came back. Is that the first?
Well, it's definitely the first I've seen him have. I can't remember him playing before that, but don't know.
No, so hopefully they'll get that done. One outgoing, pretty notable outgoing. At long last, it feels like it's taken quite some time to get there. Jack Harrison sold, off the books, gone. And it feels like that is finally kind of put to rest. There were concerns that, what are we going to do with this guy? Obviously, he's not been able to seal a permanent move to the clubs that he's been loaned out to, but eventually we've managed to get rid of him. We've even got some kind of a fee as well, so he's not had to completely kind of write him off. And it's a new page for Jack. I mean, I thought his goodbye message was certainly more heartfelt than his previous one when he left Leeds on loan, which left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. And he's another one. I mean, it's funny. He's probably, out of all the Bielsa babes, probably the least thought of in terms of affection wise. It's almost like if he never steps foot in Ellen Road again, it'd be like, I don't think anyone will really care. Whereas your Ailings and Pablos and everyone, they'll be welcomed back with open arms. And a lot of water under the bridge with Jack. Some of it, well, probably a lot of it not necessarily his fault directly, but just circumstantial and the way things have worked out. But yeah, the Jack Harrison era has ended at last year.
Yeah, I felt a little bit sorry for the whole situation when I were reading his statement. There's a lot of different factors and chapters to this. He's still had 2 years left on his contract, so it was absolutely something that we needed to move on. At 70 grand a week, it were a real problem after that whole, as just seen Gav mention it, the going down to Leicester and having a medical and then being called back and a new contract was signed, and it had this loan clause in it, and it's funny because I remember seeing an interview with Jack Harrison way back, and he was talking about his mentality, and he had a therapist for his coaching, for his mindset, and there were loads of things with Jack that just made him never really fit a Leeds profile. He always had a bit of an hard time with Leeds fans, even when he was good, and there were moments where he was really good. Not many players have a Leeds United hat trick in the Premier League against their name, and he does that hat trick away at West Ham. There were a period in time in which he really carried the team in that second season. He was the one that we were looking to, which is saying a lot when we were looking to try and stay up. And when we eventually went down, Jack Harrison was the player that was kind of carrying us, which is really sad. He were a massive part of the team that got promoted. He came back on several loans. He scored some wonder goals. I mean, I always think about the Newcastle, that cross railing, but the goal, I think it was at home to Newcastle. It was under COVID. There were no fans. He just takes it from the halfway line and runs and just arrows it into the opposite corner. He did have a sweet left foot. He had an unbelievable first touch. And I just think for whatever reason, the way that he left the first time, that unheartfelt message, followed by then his mum slagging us off in the video, and it just kind of went away from him in terms of what he should have been thought of at Leeds United. He's got an unbelievable amount of appearances for Leeds. He was always available, never injured, ran himself into the ground week in, week out. But the player that came back, there were a part of me that were excited at the beginning of last season when I thought he was going to be reintegrated to the squad, because I thought, he's basically a new signing. The player that we got back was a top-end League One winger. He was so poor, and it doesn't surprise me that he's had to make a move to the MLS to try and rediscover himself. I feel a bit sad for him. But look, it's one of them chapters. We'll remember him in years gone by when we look back at that Championship squad. We'll think, Jack Harrison on the left wing, and we'll like we've just done here, we'll reminisce some of the goals.
I do wonder, and it touches on, when you saw Jarrod Bowen staying at West Ham and what we talked about maybe last week or the week before about if you maybe sacrifice a little bit in the present, long term, there could be something there for you that might mean more. I mean, if he'd have stayed with Leeds when they got relegated, and we know he had every right to go and, go on loan here, there and everywhere, but it hadn't worked, really, has it? It's not worked. The Everton spells were terrible. Fans didn't like him there. If he'd have stayed at Leeds and kind of battled to kind of bring us back or whatnot, he could have been viewed completely differently. He could have been viewed differently, and he would have been in that kind of standing. I think what we needed at that time were the people who stayed and kind of helped. And look, it's always easy for ones who don't get any interest from any other clubs to stay. But I would have thought if he'd have done that, if he'd have stayed that time, we could be talking completely different about Jack Harrison, because he would have been seen as a bit of a hero if he'd have stayed when we got relegated. We know he was well within his rights to move, but you wonder long term, that interruption, then going to Everton and it not really working there, then obviously coming back and then getting loaned out again, it just felt like it didn't really end up going anywhere for him.
It's a real tricky one, isn't it, Browney? Because, Jack Harrison kind of alludes to it in that statement. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know if the club didn't want him again. He didn't want to leave in January and was forced down the road to Leicester. He gets to Leicester and then somebody, whether it's the 49ers, the management, Rads, or somebody, said no, this ain't happening. So he's been messed around back and forth when we could have got 25 million for him. The club obviously wanted to sell him, or somebody in the club wanted to sell him. He then comes back and gets this loan clause put into his contract, which kind of protects him should they go down come the end of the season. It's not all on him, is it? And, I just quickly did the sums. He's on 70 grand a week at Leeds. That had gone down by half when we went down. That's £1.8 million per year that Leeds United were in the Championship. Not many people are turning down £3.6 million. No. You know what I mean? So you have to factor it all in, and I think it's only fair that really we give him the benefit of the doubt in it all. You know what I mean? They are human beings at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed. Moving on then to some other transfer rumours, things that we've been kind of hovering about for a while, a couple of new ones thrown in as well. Let's cover off kind of old news. Julian Brandt, obviously, sounds as if everybody else has dropped out of the race now. Ajax were apparently in for him, but it seems that they can't do it anymore. It almost feels like a bit of an open goal for Leeds, this one, and we're at that really intriguing stage. You don't know if just all of a sudden someone's going to swoop and decide to take a punt, or is it all lining up perfectly for Leeds to get this one done?
I really hope we get it done.
Oh, same.
Really,
I really want him now. I really, really, really want to sign him.
It's probably the most exciting signing of the whole window for me. The free transfer for somebody with that quality and that pedigree, that experience, talent, everything. It's for me, it's more exciting than spending 40 million on Trafford or 34 million on Tariq. And I just think Harry Wilson's an exciting signing as well, but I just think Julian Brandt's another level on that. It reminds me of signing Pablo Hernandez to the level of the Championship. You know what I mean? It's similar to that. I think it's it's a bit of a sexy signing. It's a romantic signing. It's kind of one of them that you'd make on Football Manager out of nowhere, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, that's a right signing." I just, yeah, I love it. I love it. And the more I watch, like, highlights, I mean, I've watched all of his career. Like, I'm a bit of a Dortmund fanboy, and I've always liked him anyway. And the more you talk to people that know football, like, I really obviously value Lou's opinion. Lou absolutely gushes over him. He'd be buzzing with him at Newcastle. I just think it's such a top signing, and it feels like we spoke about Farke or 49er signing. It feels like a Farke signing. Obviously, he's German. He'd slot in nicely with Anton Stack behind him. Just so much to like with that deal. I really hope it gets done. It's funny because like the Mehramovic signing popped up, and the Harry Wilson noise started, and the Trafford noise started, and each time I've kind of been like, somebody's going to come and swoop in and take this away from us. And I've been thinking about it all the way through with Julian Brandt as well. And the longer it goes, the more I just think I'm going to hear the "here we go" to Leeds United, and it's going to get done. I just hope it does. I hope it does.
Well, there was a goal that came up on my feed of his, I think a Champions League goal. It's like a swivel that he does and then strokes the ball into the net, and I'm like, oh,
it's class, isn't it?
Please. I mean, like you say, it is that Stardust type of signing. I mean, it would be incredible. I think shirt sales would go through the roof as well. Yeah. I think it would just be absolutely phenomenal.
He took Pirot's number 10, wasn't
he? Yeah, straight away. Yeah, sorry, Joel. That's coming straight away. One where it's gone quiet. We touched on it that Leeds have kind of made what was considered their last offer for Shea Charles. That sounds as if it's still on the table. God knows where the money's coming from. But Shea Charles, I mean, it's all gone quiet there, and Southampton, they kind of seem to be in a bit of a stonewall situation at the minute, and I presume waiting for other offers. It's one that I would really like to get done, actually. I just think the age profile and that midfield, to have that extra quality in that midfield. But I'm not absolutely desperate for it to happen. If it doesn't happen, I think that's fine. I think the club have done the right thing in terms of going, right, this 100%. Is it. This is our line. But yeah, I mean, God, we have been talking about it for weeks, haven't we, Shea Charles?
Yeah, it feels like the transfer rumour of the whole window, and I'm sure Southampton fans will probably be feeling like that as well. It certainly tells me that Fulham and Crystal Palace are not that desperate to make it happen, because I think if they were, they'd have swooped and paid the fee and it had been done by now. So I think Leeds were absolutely right to kind of stand on with this. It'll be interesting to know as time goes on whether some of that money has been now used for James Trafford. I don't think it will have been. I still think there's enough in the kitty to kind of make all of this kind of work. But it does kind of have to balance out with us making sure that we, first off, sign the right free transfers, and B, make sure that we try and move some players on. You know, Jack Harrison moving on for a small fee and wages is big. Ramazani, Joe Perreault, amongst others as well. Isaac Schmidt, obviously, earlier on in the window. And there might still be another sizable transfer, and now Tanaka. I don't think Sean Longstaff would go, but our Longstaff. If we sign Shea Charles, somebody has to move in that midfield. They have to. We can't have all them options. There's just been no sense in it. There's only 3 spots to fill, and 2 of them are 100% going to be taken by Anton Stack and Ethan Ampadu. So, injuries, suspensions, all the rest of it, I get that. Rotation too and stuff, but there's still only a certain amount of game time to play around with.
Yeah, no, indeed. Just getting to some of your comments here, just whilst I load a graphic up. Arthur, is Bamford coming back? In what capacity would that be?
Mascot.
Spectator or mascot? Yeah, not sure. And Gav, you'd think Southampton would take 12 million plus Peru, get them goals in the Championship, etc. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Home shirt, yes, and we're going to mention that as well, don't you worry, Arthur.
The problem with Pirot, like, you say that, Gav, like he's got no say in it. Like, he probably don't want to go to the Championship. He's probably really resisting that. And, like, you have to say fair enough. Because if you don't want to go to the Championship, he might as well have another year of trying to craft the Premier League and leave on a free transfer in a year. Like, he might as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because then he gets a massive signing on fee for wherever he signs. He'll probably go somewhere in Europe. But if he has to step down to the Championship, then fine, he'll do it in 12 months' time.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. position on the? I mean, we were talking about this last week, and I said, "Oh, I'm not sure we'll actually do something in terms of a striker," and then yet lo and behold, several links to different strikers 3 days later. You mentioned him before, Carlos Espy, 21.4 million rated striker from Levante, 6'4", scored 11 goals for Levante last season, which helped them survive relegation. I've not watched him, but a lot of hype online about him. A lot of hype in terms of excitement at his potential, but also some other names coming up. I mean, today's a Liam Delap rumor coming up.
I've seen that.
Now, in terms of Liam Delap, where would you stand on that one? I mean, I don't know what it would be, permanent or loan or whatnot, but how do you feel about Liam Delap?
It's a funny one. People were banging on about him a year ago when he went to Chelsea, and I kind of felt a little bit in the middle with it then. I thought he'd had an alright season at Ipswich, given the circumstances and situation there. What's his exact profile? Like, what is his role? I think that's a bit of an issue with Liam Delap. What type of number 9 is he? Is he a target man? Is he a channel forward? Is he going to come in off the wing? Like, how do you get the best out of him? He does give us something different to Calvert-Lewin. He certainly would give us an option of something different, and he can do the role out and out number 9 up front on his own as well. 30 million for a very unproven young and player with potential. It's a risk. It's a real risk. The SP signing, given the potential transfer fee there and the profile of which he would then come in with, I think is better. I think that's a better suited transfer right now. I don't know what you think, but that had been my kind of direction, given the fact that I think that transfer will be between 10 and 18 million, somewhere in that ballpark. I know that's quite a big variation, but yeah, I think that'd be a smarter signing, personally.
Yeah, I from what I've been reading, obviously, it sounds like it will be exciting. I don't mind Liam Delap. I think he's probably a little bit like he's got the Brian Dean about him. He can look like unbeatable one day and look like an absolute clever for the next. And if you can tap into it, potentially you could be onto something. I just want to bring this up, Tom. Thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate that, mate. Do we need a high quality loan signing? If so, who? I mean, could the loan market potentially solve some of these issues? Potentially, Liam Delap loan, for example, or something when, obviously it didn't quite work out with Buonanotte last year, a couple of different reasons. Would have been interesting to see if that had been from the start and he'd have had a pre-season with us, etc. What would have happened then? But could potentially a loan signing, certainly maybe in the attacking area, be something that we could look at?
It could be. The problem with the word loan in the historic sense of it, we think of like a loan in the Championship as being somebody that's going to elevate the squad for a year and then go back, or you potentially sign them upon promotion, like a Manor Solomon, right? Loans in the normal sense now don't exist like that for a Premier League team. Like when Bolton signed Jack Wilshere on loan, as an example, or like when we were linked with McAtee from Manchester City the first time we came up, as an example. Them loans don't really happen anymore. They keep them in the squad and play them, or they loan them sometimes out to the continent. Germany takes a lot of them, but the situation with loans now tends to be loans with an obligation to buy. So if the loan fails, in 12 months' time, you're then going to pay 25, 30 million for a player you don't want anymore. And that's why you're seeing situations where teams are signing players on a permanent on the back of a loan and then instantly looking to sell them. I can think of a few straight away off the bat. You're looking at Luis Openda at Juventus, Tammy Abraham at Aston Villa, are both in them situations where neither of them teams want that player anymore. Now they're trying to sell on a player that they've been obligated to buy. So I think you have to be really careful with this loan to obligation situation that you can end up getting yourself into. Maybe there might be a situation for somebody that's gone to a big team, hasn't worked out. Maybe they can come to us for a year and build again. I can't think of any names off the top of my head. Maybe.
maybe we could do something there. Really fascinating comment up here from Fernie. Not worried about us, but with these crazy transfer prices, do you think it's a matter of time before one or more of these Prem teams go bankrupt like we did under Ridsdale? Now, I think it's a different financial landscape. I think what the owners have got in the bank account is incredible. What I do kind of want to link that onto a fascinating graphic here that came up in the week as well. This is net spend from clubs over the last few seasons, I suppose, the last couple of seasons, I'm not quite sure. Now, what you'll notice is the top 6 teams there are the big 6. And if you look at Liverpool there, they're the bottom of the net spenders there, and they spent 534 million net spend. Now, if you look bottom 2, Aston Villa, considering that they've won a trophy, they've played in Europe, God knows how many seasons on the trot, Champions League, they've got a positive net spend. And then obviously Leeds just above them, they're creeping. I mean, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how rigged the Premier League is, really, in terms of what we can do. Also, I mean, it does say that Emery's an absolute genius, by the way, at Aston Villa, what he's managed to do with that Villa team, reinventing themselves over and over again, and he's going to have to do it again this summer, by the way. I think that's more the financial landscape that we're dealing with. It's like, you know, the 49ers investment firm's never going to go bust or bankrupt or not be able to pay its bills. The problem happens is you can't afford to invest in the squad. Your squad quality takes a hit, and then you start to kind of sink backwards and backwards and backwards to potentially the risk being that you get relegated. You know, and that's where I see the risk factor at the minute, rather than, you know, I mean, half of these owners, well, majority of these owners, billionaires several times over. It's not going to be that they're going to go bankrupt, but it's a complicated picture. It's a complicated thing, and you know, it's eye-watering, some of the fees that happen.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the landscape of ownership is very, very, very different. You know, Peter Ridsdale owning the club in the way that he did, that don't really exist anymore. It's all, you know, companies and franchises and parts of it. And I mean, a lot of the money that, yeah, they're extremely wealthy people, these people, but they're not all of it's cash. No. It's just numbers in possessions, in assets. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a lot of it's borrowing against what they think they're worth. Like it's I mean, I am not intelligent enough to be able to deal with it, but I know that is how it operates, how it works, how it looks. So the likelihood of a Premier League team going bust is basically non-existent. It's whether you operate within the confines of the rules effectively enough to be able to keep on moving the ship forward. Before eventually it ends up spinning round real quick, and that's what's happened at West Ham and at Wolves. And you know, Villa, I don't get it. I don't understand how they are not able to spend more, given that landscape, given the size of club that they are as well. You know, they're not a Bournemouth who have got 11,000 in their stadium every week. It's unreal, really. So yeah, it's a fascinating picture. It's good to see that we're at the bottom of that list, because it still allows us to really work. And you know, you've mentioned it a couple of times already today. Maybe there is more within the rules with us staying up for a year, given the sales that we've made, to be able to spend what we're spending. You know, who knows?
What it points to, though, is there will be a sting in the tail. It's like, we can spend like this now, but we're going to have to be one of those teams where you sell a big asset for multiple amounts that you bought them for. You know, I mean, that's what's fueling. I mean, Forest have done it. You know, Elliot Anderson, they've banked another 116 million with Elliot Anderson. So it's like they can go again, can't they? They can buy several players. You know, you're just raising the bar. But yeah, it is mind-boggling. Let's have a look at this before we finish up. That's the new kit, Jay, the new home kit. I'm going to kind of go against the grain here. I actually don't mind it. I think it's all right, you know. I think it'll look good on the players, and I think we needed to do something different with the home shirt. I don't get too deep into it, to be honest, but that's my general kind of take on it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I overall quite like it. It's a bit different. I'm a bit of a sucker for a pinstripe anyway. Obviously horizontal rather than vertical. But yeah, I quite like it. I'm a bit like you. I'm not going to go too deep into it either. The away shirt is a thing of absolute beauty, and the training gear's really really nice as well. I really like all of that, and I do think it'll look even better than just on a still image. So yeah, quite happy with it.
Yeah, and it's always what you do in the kits as well, isn't it? I mean, if you have an iconic moment in a kit, then you're laughing.
So true. Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else you want to add, Jay, before we finish up? Anything we've not covered?
Maybe just round up with a few comments because we have gone over
Yes.
what we usually will do today, but just so we don't miss any more.
Yeah, let's have a look and see what you guys have been saying. Yeah, some brilliant ones coming through. Absolutely, actually. Scooby loan with obligation to buy blind. We've probably got half a team of those already who wants them. Bez, to be fair, the first season at Burnley, this is James Trafford, when dropped, Burnley defence was awful and he was very young. I just look at what City fans are saying, and a lot think he's better than Donnarumma.
I mean, he's not better than Donnarumma. Donnarumma for me is the number one keeper in the world, which can then the guy's a freak. He's like a spider, which then can actually further go against what I've said previously about that making part of a negative, if you want to have one, towards Trafford, because he's been replaced ultimately by the best keeper in the world. Some people will say Martinez. For me, I think Donnarumma's an absolute freak. So, but yeah, hey, I think your point is fair. I was a bit loath to kind of get any sort of negativity towards such an exciting signing, but I couldn't not say it because it's how I see it. I'm hoping that he'll come in and absolutely extract all of that potential and be an absolute bomb for Leeds United and be brilliant. I just think we have to analyse it as it is at this moment, and they are all facts. Everything that I've said is things that have happened. So yeah, I just think it's a lot of money, but you pay a lot of money to get the best things.
I mean, it has to work, doesn't it? I mean,
it does.
This can't be a Perry. You drop him 6 months into the season. This has to work.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Andy, thanks for coming. I don't understand the hype around Delap overrated, says Arthur. Yeah, absolutely. And Arthur, love the home kit. Go nice pair blue shorts and trainers. Yep, absolutely. Indeed. Good stuff. Okay, well, me and Jay, we will be back on Friday morning for another episode of Leeds United Latest. Let's hope there's confirmation then of the James Trafford signing, maybe even Julian Brandt as well. Wouldn't that be lovely? If you've not done so already, please do smash a like on the video and get subscribed to the channel. If you're watching again later, get your comments in as well. But we'll be back later on in the week. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.